Stepping up to the tomb cameras, the president flashed like lightning across Arlington National Cemetery's silent tombs. With his palms clenched on his brow, he demanded, "Salute me, soldier," anticipating a sharp response. The tomb guard, however, remained motionless and unblinking as he stood there, weapon locked across his chest, eyes staring into the abyss, as if the unknown themselves were observing. A gasp escaped the audience. The veterinarians mumbled something. The flag was dropped by a child. They saw it as blatant disdain, a power struggle that had gone wrong on sacred territory. Unbeknownst to anyone, not even the Secret Service, was the fact that this guard had sworn an oath more solemn than any Oval Office, and had buried his brother beneath that very marble. The general who had hurried in from the Pentagon was aware of the reason the salute would never be given. Before we go on with this amazing story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have the bell icon turned on. Tell us in the comments section from where you are watching this from. Help us carry on their work if you think principles like bravery, honor, and sacrifice are important today. Arlington National Cemetery was enveloped in a somber silence beneath a slate-gray sky, befitting a site where heroes rest in peace. On this Veterans Day, the grounds came to life with the gentle patter of wool coats as families made their way around the cemetery, the low rumble of a trumpet practicing for the ceremonial taps, and the never-ending wind whisper that passed between the rows of white marble gravestones, as if prayers had been forgotten. At the tomb of the unknown soldier, Sergeant Elias Kane, referred to by his platoon as Iron Kane, took his position. At 35 years old, he resembled the Virginia Hills in appearance, sturdy and unyielding, with dark hair cropped tight to the head and eyes the shade of storm clouds that had witnessed an excess of sand and an absence of pity, while his M14 rifle, which was polished to a mirror finish, sat barrel up across his chest, bayonet set like a silent promise. Elias locked his boots into position, heels together, toes out at a precise 10 carud. His white gloves held the weapon steadily, as if he had forgotten what it was like to quaver. His black wool-gray coat encircled his figure, with brass buttons catching the weak light. Being a member of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, the elite unit of the Army, he was responsible for keeping watch over the unknowns. His identity has since been forgotten, but the sacrifice he made will live on in America. It was more than a post, it was a promise to Elias. Recalling his time in Afghanistan, where the dust made breathing difficult, and the nights seemed to go on forever, he reflected on the day he had enrolled for it. Years ago, his 24-year-old Marine brother Jake was killed in Fallujah by an IED that only left behind dog tags and a folded flag. Back in their little Ohio town, Elias had been 19 years old, gazing at the flag on the mantel and feeling its weight like a stone in his gut. Whispering to the living room that was deserted, he had said, "I'll bring it over for you, Jake. It wasn't for the spotlight or the glitz that I joined the Old Guard." Being the unwavering line that allowed the fallen to find solace in the midst of a chaotic world was crucial to the story. The courtyard surrounding the tomb was beginning to fill up today. War veterans, their ball hats worn and tattered, rested on canes while they whispered tales. People of all ages gathered around the amphitheater, adoring the everlasting flame which pulses like a heartbeat. Children gaze in awe. The ceremonial changing of the guard had just concluded. The sentinels had marched off in perfect unison, their boots sounding like rifle rounds as they cracked the stone. Up on the platform, the relieving commander kept an eye on Elias during his shift, which lasted from midday to 2. The sharp taste of fall leaves and the faraway wood smoke from a barbecue place in Washington, D.C., accompanied his deep breaths. As he pushed aside the pain in his knees from his PT run last night and the slight scar on his jaw from a near miss in Kandahar, his thoughts became clear. It was all about the here and now, with little thought of the past or future. The quiet was broken by the gentle rumble of engines across the Memorial Bridge. A procession cut across the PTOX image, 2 rows of Secret Service agents in sharp clothes and earpieces, followed by 2 sleek black SUVs with opaque windows that glistened like obsidian. At the cemetery gates, the leading vehicle came to a stop, and a familiar person emerged, President Donald J. Trump, from whom the throng recognized him at once. With large shoulders concealed by a navy overcoat, a scarlet tie that fluttered like a flag in the wind, and golden hair that refused to be blown away, he exhibited the same bulldog vigor that had propelled boardrooms and ballots even at the age of 79. Before he even entered the room, his face broke into that distinctive smile that exuded confidence. "Come here today, folks," he thundered, his voice resembling that of a campaign rally mic check, "to pay tribute to the finest soldiers this country has ever produced, the genuine heroes, not the ones you read about in the false news. These young men and women sacrificed all so we could be free." With a faint sound of agreement, the audience let forth a small ovation. As usual, Trump waved, pointed, and locked eyes with a weathered veteran wearing a Vietnam jacket as the cameras flashed from the press pool, which was cordoned off to the side. "You fought the good fight, sir. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous." Captain Maria Reyes, his military aide and a 42-year-old ex-Navy SEAL with angular features, black hair tied back in a tight bun, and an aura of plain-spoken no-nonsense, stood opposite him. She had rescued her unit from a scorching LZ, served 2 tours in the sandbox, and now it was her job to make sure the top executive didn't mess up protocol. She whispered, "Mr. President," falling into step with him as they drew near the burial plaza. "The guards are on duty. No interactions. It's sacred ground." As he patted her on the shoulder, Trump chuckled knowingly. "Maria, relax. I'm not here to salute them. They salute me. But look at that setup. Rock solid. Reminds me of my days at New York Military Academy. We had discipline like that. Let's make this visit memorable. The people eat this stuff up." As the group approached, Elias remained unfazed. He couldn't take his gaze off the white marble slab that bore the inscription, "Here rests in honor, glory, an American soldier known but to God." The sound of the motorcade's doors clanging shut and the scrape of polished shoes on gravel could be heard. While Elias was high, the president's voice reverted to the conspiratorial tone he employed in his TV close-ups. The breeze drew him along, carrying with it the subtle aroma of diesel and perfume, but he paid little attention to it. With a steady rhythm, he mentally chanted the creed of the Sentinel. "My dedication to this sacred duty is total and wholehearted." A movement occurred among the throng, and hushed murmurs quickly swept across the parched grass. A young family leaned over, one of the parents wearing a Packers hoodie, the mother carrying a toddler on her hip, and the 10-year-old son holding a small American flag. He exclaimed, "Is that really him?" with his eyes wide with embarrassment. In agreement, his father gave him a shoulder squeeze. "Yeah, kiddo, the president. But remember, this place ain't about presidents. It's about the guys who don't get their names on plaques." With his hands on his hips, Trump assessed the Sentinel from his vantage point at the edge of the mat, 20 feet away from Elias. At 6 feet 2 inches tall, with his ramrod straight and gun extending from his arm, the guard stood there like a living statue. "That guy's a machine," Trump whispered to Reyes, his words audible to the press. "Just look at him. Absolutely nothing. Cozy up for a second, soldier. Hello, the President of the U.S. wishes to say." The plaza at Arlington tensed as President Trump strode closer, his cloak billowing like a cape in an old western. But Elias's heart rate remained constant. He was both the tomb and the watch, and neither of them bowed. Under the weight of the place, even the Secret Service agents appeared to relax a bit. This wasn't a rally ground or a rose garden photo op. It was sacred ground, where the simple white stones marked the resting place of over 400,000 souls, each one a story cut short by duty. With the midterms approaching and the polls tighter than a drum, this was a golden opportunity for Trump to show the heartland that he understood, that he honored the fight without the Washington fluff. Trump was no stranger to this, having been here before as both a candidate and president laying wreaths and cutting ribbons. However, today felt different. Veterans Day 2025. True to habit, he began by shaking hands with a group of Gold Star mothers, whose wet eyes were hidden under wide-brimmed hats. He then moved on to the perimeter. "Weaponsmen, your lads were fierce. The top, they're all going home with us now. Solid defenses, including fortified borders. Endless conflicts are over." "Thank you, Mr. President," one mother said, her voice quivering as she grabbed his hand. "Do not give up the struggle for him." He gave her a knowing nod, his intense gaze making her feel alone in Washington, D.C. His attention then turned to a cluster of Korean War veterans, gathered around the eternal flame. "You guys completely shut down the Reds, very resilient. Those trade deals and you may have been useful to me." He would be taken by surprise by China. Cameras, news from the media risers, recording every angle, the president's easy smile, the vet's nods of appreciation. Sincere and grumbling laughter rose up, cutting the frost. Hank Thompson, a 98-year-old fossil of the greatest generation D-Day paratrooper, Purple Heart, with oak leaves and all, observed from his wheelchair, parked beneath a sprawling oak tree, whose leaves were turning the color of old blood. His hands, gnarled like tree roots, gripped the arms of the chair, and his eyes, sharp behind bifocals, followed Trump like a hawk eyeing a field mouse. Timmy, His 10-year-old grandson sat next to him, occupied with a plastic toy soldier and a little of squirming. "Grandpa, I don't understand why the president is always talking." Whispering under his breath, Timmy kicked a rock. "Son, that's how leaders do it," Hank said while laughing with a raspy rasp that sounded like an old book flipping pages. "Their weapons are words, but that's the genuine deal over there," he said, gesturing toward Elias, who was remained motionless before the tomb. Complete silence. The attention of Trump, who seemed to be drawn inexorably to the sentinel like a magnet dragging iron, was captivated by the sight of the uniformed man, whose white gloves shone like a penny against the gray stone. "Tell me about these tomb guys," Trump asked his aide, Maria, as she checked her tablet for the schedule. "Are they seriously eating nails for breakfast? I liken that discipline to my old drill sergeant, although it's more understated." Her demeanor was a blend of pride and caution when Captain Reyes glanced up. She had been here 100 times, briefed 12 presidents on the etiquette. "The honor guard is their society, sir. Military selection process is the most rigorous. Months of training go into perfecting their marches, rifle drills, and even the art of non-movement sweating. Always on guard, regardless of the weather or holiday. Silence, without a word or a smile. This isn't about you, I solemnly swear." With narrowed brows, Trump stroked his chin and said, "Oath? Excuse me? I personally grabbed a couple of those. The most important one is Commander-in-Chief. Then I guess we should just take a picture. People are really into this, offering a salute to the unknowns at the tomb. Iconic." A family, including the Packer's dad, waved back awkwardly as he adjusted his tie. The mother took a picture on her phone as the toddler giggled with delight. The air became thicker as the group approached, and Elias could make out every sound, the president's baritone rumbling like thunder over the Ohio plains, the aides cutting off explanations, the low buzz of the crowd like bees in a hive, the aching muscles in his shoulders and arms from the hold. But he ignored them as usual, and the creed played in his mind. "Though our arms shall be steeled against the onslaught of all self-seekers and selfish ones who would try to turn this hallowed ground into a battlefield." Seekers of self-interest. The term stuck, but he disregarded it. Not his decision. With his voice down to that of a storyteller, Hank Thompson leaned in toward Timmy. "Do you see the guard, boy? Names? Most likely a sturdy substance, such as cane or stone. His actions speak louder than words. For all the rednecks who have ever dug a foxhole, he's the one holding the line. Just like that, your great-uncle was." The Pacific Marines captured Tarzois without a peep of protest, sat tall despite dying on Invo. Flag was grasped more tightly as Timmy's eyes widened. "Is the president familiar with him?" "Presidents come and go, Timmy, like seasons," Hank said with a subtle snort. "That tomb, though, always present. Stay tuned for the outcome." Just 10 feet away, Trump's glossy loafers were brushing against the edge of the mat. The press gathered around him, their cameras zooming in, and the Secret Service lingered, but Reyes flashed them a glance and told them to stand down. It was all procedural drama, and everyone knew the script, except for the star. Standing tall with his hands relaxed at his sides, Trump locked eyes with Elias and exhibited the menacing gaze that garnered votes and sealed agreements. "What a remarkable display of Marine-like posture, soldier," he exclaimed with conviction. "Oh, that's better. I can relax for a moment. Stand up and salute us." Angular shot for the picture. "It is greatly appreciated by the Commander-in-Chief." The words lingered there, as strong as brass. The audience took a deep breath in as a whole. Elias's jaw clenched slightly, not noticeable even to the vigilant veterans, but on the inside, his thoughts were steady as a rifle sight. No acknowledgement, no movement beyond the walk, no salute to titles. The unknowns wanted the whole measure, according to the strict protocol. Reyes advanced half a pace, his voice quiet but determined. "Excuse me, sir. You can't have them. A timepiece, that is." After a brief pause, Trump's smile grew as if he had just detected a threat. "Maria, hurry up. Veterans Day has here. Just a little deference between combatants." Returning to Elias, he became increasingly vocal and theatrical. "Salutations, sir. Praise the president. Deservedly so. Everyone here has." In the stillness, Elias could make out the distant horizon where the grave markers seemed to extend on forever. The wind had picked up, sounding like a warning bell rattled the flagpole's chains, and the present instant was as slender as a razor's edge, like the one that had entangled Elias's exhaustion in the Hindu Kush. The reverberation of President Trump's remarks reverberated off the marble amphitheater, reverberating even more sharply, as if daring the air itself to respond, but being unresponsive. while the 200-strong throng, now overflowing the barriers, remains still in that uncomfortable silence that ensues when giants clash without fists. Timmy, a small boy, clutched his flag so tightly that the plastic shattered. His whimper broke the silence as the photographer snapped once or twice, capturing the standoff between Trump, all bombast and breath, and Elias, a monolith in wool and white gloves. "Grandpa, will he really do it?" With his gaze fixed on the action, Hank Thompson slowly shook his head. "No way, my dear. I don't think that's how this works. View this video to see the appearance of genuine steel." Leaning in slightly, Trump lowered his voice to that folksy boom, the one that packed arenas, as he stepped up his game, sensing the heat of the spotlight. He was still a showman at heart, a former New York dealmaker turned DC disruptor, and this was improv gold. "Listen, my friend, I understand. Donald J. Trump, the 47th president, is here when duty calls. I have led the most powerful army on this verdant planet. Greetings were exchanged with monarchs and generals. Just give us a fresh one, please. As a nation, we honor our veterans." With an elbow up and fingers pointing to his brow, he performed a casual salute that was textbook if little dramatic, and the press devoured it, their cameras clicking like cicadas in a frenzy. Elias, like any man, felt the pull. The president's presence was a huge magnetic force that drew in light and air. Sweat beaded under his collar and trickled slowly down his spine, but his face remained expressionless like fresh snow. His boots dug deeper into the mat, and his cold, numb toes oozed up from the granite. On the inside, memories resurfaced like mortar rounds, their time spent training at Fort Myer, standing for 2 hours straight in simulated blizzards, while instructors yelled at them, "You venture, you fall short of the mysteries." On the other hand, Brother Jake's final letter, which was crumpled in his pocket that night in Helmand Province, "Stand firm, Eli, for the guys who can't." The creed, a linchpin, was now silently chanted by him. "I will never forget that neither yesterday nor today diminish my responsibilities to those whom I am sworn to protect." With a sudden change in her SEAL instincts, Captain Reyes screamed interference as she gently but firmly put a gloved hand on Trump's arm. "Esteemed Mr. President, with all due respect, the laws of this society are final. Not interested. We are not the focus here. Here lies the grave of the departed." Her velvety voice sliced through the steel as she glanced over at the platform's relief commander, a stocky staff sergeant sporting a buzz cut and a hand hovering over his radio. Trump gently shook her off, but as soon as the deal started to go south, his jaw would set that telltale tick. "Maria, I'm going to die from this. It is not a stuffy protocol seminar. This is Arlington. There is no one like this dude. I find heroes. Exit guard." He crossed the mat with a toe, and Elias could detect a hint of citrus from his aftershave mingling with his coat's wool. A tremor of uneasiness rippled across the audience as they gasped softly, and one Secret Service agent muttered into his cuff, "One clean, rapid salute. You're built just right. I bet you have some tips that my detail could use." Elias inhaled evenly through his nose and exhaled evenly through his mouth as he practiced his cadence. The weight of the rifle tugged at his familiar burn traps, but he held on. The president's hand remained still, salute raised, as he waited for the echo. The seconds ticked by, 510 like heartbeats in a foxhole. On the sidelines, mutterings increased. A mother reprimanded her child. A veterinarian grumbled, "Let it go, Donnie." With a tug, Timmy took Hank's sleeve. "Grandpa, he is not moving. Just like a machine." "Like a rock," Hank corrected, his voice gravelly. "That's the army way, kid. We will not budge for votes or brass. Do not forget that." Now Trump's laugh sounds forced and hollow. "You're painting me in a negative light here. Okay, monument. The Pentagon has nuts that are harder than mine. But truly, soldier, I've seen world leaders crumble in the face of your intense gaze. Take it easy. Way to go, boss." He let go of the hand, smacked his thigh for emphasis, and winked at the cameras, but the wink fell hollow. The lensman remained motionless, feeling blood. The situation boiled over when Trump, whose impulses were like a poorly timed tweet, extended a hand and touched Elias's shoulder. The gesture was intended to be a sign of friendship, but it landed like a spark on dry tinder. The touch was gentle, almost paternal, but it was sacrilegious on that holy square foot of carpet. Although Elias's thoughts screamed forth commands like breach and hold, he remained unfazed. The relief commander acted swiftly while seated on the platform. The sound of boots striking the steps was followed by stomping, followed by a single resounding heel hitting the granite, a traditional warning signaling, "Back off, civilian." As the boom reverberated off the tomb's sides, it shook the audience to its core like a bass drop during a rock performance, causing some to mutter under their breath while others reached for their phones to record the event. Timmy, startled, leaped in his chair. "Oh my, I don't understand." Hank smiled broadly. "That's it, young man. The guard responds when you cross it. Without words, only feet will do." His expression changed from tan to surprise, not anger, but close, as he jerked back in the middle of patting his palm, as if he had touched a live wire. He stepped back as smoothly as he could and muttered, "Whoa, easy there, cowboy," to the oncoming commander. Reyes said something important into her headset as the agent detail closed rank and was subtle. "All clear, but tighten the rope." In a short amount of time, the president turned it into gold. "Look at that order, people. For that reason, no nation can match the might of our armed forces. Straight talk, out of this world." But something had clicked in that moment. The energy of the crowd changed, not hostile, but reverent, as all eyes shifted from Trump to Elias, who hadn't moved an inch. The sentinel stared into space, rifle steady, gloves immaculate. Sweat beaded up his shirt, which was now cold and damp, but his body was rock solid, unyielding, unbroken. He could barely make out Jake's voice in his thoughts. "You are capable, my friend. As for us..." Trump looked around the room, veterans nodding slowly, family members staring slack-jawed, and angry scrawling from the press. The relief commander remained 5 feet away, his posture reflecting Elias's, eyes fixed front. There were no words, only presence. Protocol was strictly observed. He let out another, weaker laugh. Very well, got the message." Well, that was really intense. A single resounding clap from him broke the enchantment. "Keep going, soldier. Unknowns, you are doing them proud." As he turned to face Rye, the sound of his footfall echoed, a mark on the boundaries of power. Elias let out a long breath, closing the gap with his creed. "Be vigilant, step by step, for all that is evil." With him, the plaza breathed out the line, the tomb standing firm, and the wind dying down as if the dead had weighed in. Patting Timmy's knee, Hank leaned back. "Look at that young man. In America, that is. Strong men, loftier pledges." With his flag lowered in wonder, Timmy nodded. The standoff faded away like mist off the PTOEC, leaving the square enveloped in that post-thunder quiet where everything feels sharper and clearer. And in the subsequent silence, everyone could feel it. The frozen line wasn't just stone, it was soul. President Trump straightened his coat, his self-assured gait returning as he retreated from the mat. But there was now an itch, a slight pull, as if he had just looked in the mirror and blinked first. As they waded through the dwindling crowd, Captain Reyes dove in next to him, tablet tucked under her arm. "Is everything all right with you, sir?" That came really near. Although Trump dismissed it, he briefly returned his gaze to Elias, who remained fixed on the target, despite the whirlwind of events engulfing him. "That was electrifying, Maria. The man's blood is as cold as ice. That kind of resolve is why we fight, not for attention, but for it." At the podium where the wreath was to be laid, he lingered, fiddling unsteadily with the Stars and Stripes ribbon. "Please distribute the news release. Salutes the unwavering determination of Tomb Guard honored by President. Bring it to life." Reyes tapped notes and nodded in agreement. The video was already in the editing process, and was gaining popularity. She glanced at her phone and heard a notification buzzing. It was the first tweet from a vet account, and it read, "Trump meets his match at Arlington. Duty ego. Sir Tomb Guard enjoys climbing quickly." On the other side, Elias's shift was winding down. The mental clock read 58 minutes 57, like shots in a clip. His shoulders ached from holding the rifle sideways, but he sucked it in, much like the doubt that murmured, "Had you relocated?" Jake, however, would pass judgment. A faint memory of their final goodbye, shared beers on an Ohio porch swing, with fireflies twinkling like stars, flooded Jake's mind. With a clinking of beers, Jake pleaded with Eli, saying, "No matter what, you will stand for the little guys." After laughing and referring to him as dramatic, Elias now took it as gospel. As the relief commander's delicate hand chop swung from the platform, Elias's boot heaved upwards with the precision of a surgeon's blade. He was ordered to turn left, march forward 12 steps and then halt. The walk-off was a symphony of movement and poetry, heels snapping, rifles swinging in arc and eyes forward through the ghosts. Elias could feel the weight of the crowd's eyes on him, but he chose not to glance at the platform steps. Then he descended to the changing room, a shadowy crypt beneath the amphitheater walls adorned with lockers and a subtle aroma of leather and gun grease. He nodded to pass the M14 to the armor. No words were exchanged according to the code. Inside, he slowly undid the gray coat's sharp buttons. The white gloves were next. hidden away like secrets. His undershirt clung to him, damp, and his muscles trembled as the hold was released. He sank onto a bench, staring at the concrete floor, which bore the marks of 1,000 boot heels. With a creak, the door swung open, and Hank Thompson, accompanied by a volunteer assistant, stepped inside. Elias was a beacon in the old man's eyes. "Sergeant Kane, isn't he?" Beheld the entire event from where I stood. Impressive stance. In his off-duty life, Elias was simply LA Ohio draw, with calloused hands from summers spent working the farm. A flash of surprise flickered in his eye as the mob retreated. "Esteemed Mr. Well, I failed to notice you, Thompson." He rose up and extended a helping hand. Hank unexpectedly grasped it, as if it were a vice. "Just say you're Hank's son, and that you were successful. The president is a raging bull. That I will grant him. Make a less dramatic entrance into Normandy. However, you managed to hold the hill." A rumpled picture depicting uniformed stick people, one of whom was saluting a tomb, was clutched by Timmy as he peered over the arm of the chair. "Esteemed Mr. Reserve, this is for you. You're just great, isn't doing anything." With flushed cheeks, he thrust it out. Elias bent down and delicately took the paper, spreading it to reveal the scrawl, "Unbreakable Guard." A lump formed in his throat, swift and unbitten. "Good day, my friend. Feels great. May I know your name?" "Hey there, Timmy. We got flags because of you, according to Grandpa." "The kids are perfectly correct," Hank said with a laugh. "Lie down the entire time. A single sound. In just 2 minutes, you educated him more than all my tales combined." With a deep voice, Elias tousled the boy's locks. "Listen, Timmy. You can come see the transformation next Veterans Day. Come see us at work." He stood up straight and locked eyes with Hank. "And you, Sir Omaha Beach." Hank looked away for a second. One initially dove in head first, and when they came out they could see stars. "We pulled off the bluff, even though I lost half my platoon. You probably also lost someone, I would say." There was a long gap. "Performs on stage. My brother, Marines Fallujah." The words hung basic, unadorned. "Then there are 2 protectors for this tomb today," Hank said slowly, nodding. "Take pride in shaking the hand of only one." Outside, the plaza was bustling with activity. A motorcade headed by a new Trump patiently idled outside the gates, its engines purring. He laid the wreath, which consisted of red poppies and white lilies wrapped in blue ribbon. He then stood for the formal shot, placing his arm around the shoulders of a young widow as she wiped away her tears. "We're making it right for them," he had stated, his voice empathetic as he addressed the microphones. "Strongest military, best care." Everyone was included. Though they cheered courteously, the atmosphere changed, with people staring at the tomb and whispering about the still sentinel. With the SUVs leaving, Trump plopped himself into the plush leather interior of the beast, phone in hand, as Reyes sat across from him, engrossed in scrolling feeds. "The videos have 2 million views, sir. Lot of feedback, primarily from veterinarians. American grit is that. Primary responsibility. There is some resistance, but overall, things are looking up." Watching a shaky video of his pat, stomp, and retreat, Trump snorted and tugged at his half-smile as he scrolled. "Take a look at it. Me against the monument. Absolute disaster. Nope. Fantastic lesson." Swiftly typing with his fingers flying, he wrote, "Just left Arlington National Cemetery. Honored our heroes at the tomb. Those guards unbreakable. True patriots. America first means respecting the real fighters. Veterans Day." With a click of the send button, the tweet illuminated, and retweets descended like a waterfall. The family stood a distance away, waving, and Timmy yelling, as Elias stepped out of Civi's pants, plaid shirt, worn boots, and rucksack draped over one shoulder. "Farewell, superhero." With a genuine smile bursting through, he returned the wave. In that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the gravestones a golden hue, America let out a sigh of relief. Power had touched forever, and returned wiser. The line remained intact, and the specter slumbered peacefully. In the midst of the evening rush hour in Washington, D.C., Elias Kane made his way home, his radio set to a low classic rock station, where Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA played, its raw pain echoing the pain in his bones. The apartment he lived in was a rundown third-floor walk-up in Alexandria. It wasn't nice, but it had scuffed hardwood floors, a fridge full of takeout containers and Bud Light, and pictures of their mom at Christmas, smiling broadly before she passed away from cancer, displayed on the walls. The river was now running dark, and lights from the Kennedy Center twinkled like distant artillery as he plopped his boots down on the Formica counter, dropped his keys on the counter, and padded to the living room window that overlooked the Potomac. With the day's burden, not the physical grip but the what-ifs, crashing down, he collapsed into the drooping couch. A flurry of accusations would have ensued, had Trump exerted more pressure, or the Pat had resorted to verbal attack. However, this had not happened. The line remained unchanged. A pile of invoices and official seals lay on the coffee table, but he saw one envelope with crisp paper and pushed it open to see White House letterhead. To Sergeant Kane, the document is official, scripted and signed in blue ink. It was a privilege to observe your unfaltering devotion at the tomb today, Donald J. Trump. Your unfaltering service, regardless of the limelight, is a testament to what makes America great. Please continue to stand tall. Best regards, DJT. He carefully folded it and placed it next to Jake's picture, his laughter escaping as he glanced at the words. There was no photo op or fanfare, just calm, almost. You there, my friend. At times, even the tall man understands. Subsequently, while relaxing on the fire escape with a beer in hand, he checked his phone for the first time throughout the day. The video had gone viral, with 8 million views. Hashtags such as Unbroken Salute and The Tomb Vast were trending, and comments were falling in like a river. The oath is being put into action by a chief of the Navy, who is also a veteran. I respect you, Sergeant. A mother from Texas. This gives me the willies. My kid is in the military. True heroes aren't on Twitter. Some on the opposing side even displayed respect by stepping back and showing class. Puss. With his head tilted back toward the stars, obscured by the smog of the city, he secured the screen. Unexpectedly, Jake's voice emerged. Eli, it's not about the glory. It's the subsequent calm. It wasn't the cameras or tweets, but the oath, engraved deeper than scars, that made Timmy's duty important. Then there was the calm after. The conclusion of the shift, the handshake with Hank, Timmy's drawing posted to his locker. The following morning, Arlington greeted us with a crisp morning, with frost limning the headstones like lace. Elias got back into his uniform, fastened his gloves, and poised his weapon for the next watch. As he marched out, the boogler sounded, the joyful notes resonating clearly. Meanwhile, at the White House across the river, Trump sipped his coffee and skimmed briefings. The tweet had reached 20 million hits, and polls in the Rust Belt were moving in his favor. However, during his reflective moments, he would think back to the stomp and the stillness. Power came and went, but honor remained. Here in the Free State, real liberty resided in the preparation we made for the unknown. Our brethren perished, along with the marble and bloodlines we drew. America, stand firm. The guard remains. Tell a veteran this tale if it hits close to home. Honor is paramount, and duty never ends.